Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Van Gogh Day. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are celebrating Vincent van Gogh, the man who traditionally we have recognized as the one responsible for Starry Night, perhaps one of the most famous paintings in the world. A couple of facts about Van Gogh before we get started on our project for today. Vincent van Gogh was alive from 1853 until 1890. He was a Dutch painter. He's from the Netherlands. He's very, very famous for his brush strokes. When Vincent van Gogh would paint, he would use oil paint, and he would use it so thick and right onto the canvas. He would build his paintings so they're very, very recognizable by their brush strokes. He only sold one painting while he was alive. It was called Red Vineyard of Arles in 1888. Perhaps one of the world's most famous painters, and while he was here on earth, he only sold one painting. Two of his most famous paintings, of course, are The Starry Night and the one that you see right here called Sunflowers. So today, based on sunflowers, we are going to create together what we would call a still life. A positioned, perhaps vase of flowers. It can be fruit. It can be anything really that does not move that you put in a position and you create a work of art about it. And we call that a still life. So ladies and gentlemen, let's get started today on our Van Gogh Day. What we're going to need today is we will need a piece of paper, a pencil. If you have either crayons or oil pastels, those will work great. And then for a lot of our project, you will need some watercolor. So when you get your watercolor supplies ready, make sure you have a cup of water to rinse your brush, some different size brushes, the paints themselves, and then of course a paper towel to wash off your brush and dry it before you begin with a new color. So let's begin. We're going to start today by creating the bottom of the vase. If we take a look at Van Gogh's still life, you can see that the bottom of the vase is not quite to the bottom of the painting, and it's just a curved line. So I kind of call that my sort of happy to be here smile. It's not super big, but it's a curved line towards the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go just above the bottom of my picture here, and I'm going to create the bottom of my vase by drawing just a slightly curved line, just like this one here. Sort of happy to be here, not overly excited. Now from there, we're going to take our lines and we're going to go from the bottom of the vase to approximately just short of center of the paper. Now it doesn't matter what size paper you have. If your paper is smaller, just go halfway. If you have a large piece, this is an 11 by 14 that I'm using here, I'm going to go to approximately halfway. Now for this line, we're going to think of it as a big stretched out letter C. So if I go from here, I'm going to slightly curve up, and it's like I took the letter C and just went whoop and stretched it up. Very nice. Now on the other side, we're going to flip that letter C and we're going to do the same thing, but backwards. So now on the other side, we're going to create a letter C that's a little bit backwards. Okay. All right, and you can be pretty sketchy with this with your pencil. We're going to go over it with crayons or oil pastels when we're done drawing. Now at the top of my vase, I'm going to copy this curved line right here from one side and scoop it to the other. And there we have the beginnings of our vase. Now as I'm working, I'm going to take a look at Vincent van Gogh to see how he has that nice little line towards the center of his vase. That gives us the opportunity to paint our vase different colors on the top and the bottom. So for there, I'm going to copy the same concept of my sort of happy to be here curved line. And we're going to draw that from one side to the other. Now you'll notice I'm a very sketchy drawer. I never really do anything too particular. I just get the things in place, and sometimes I draw more than one line. Please do that. This is meant to be a very free drawing experience and coloring and painting. Nothing too fussy, nothing too particular, just go with the flow. All right, now we're going to get our table in place. You see how this still life of the sunflowers is sitting, it looks like it's sitting on a table. So to do that, we're going to go just below this line that we just drew, and I'm going to draw a horizontal line from the right side of my vase out to the side of my paper, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So skip over my vase, go on the opposite side of my paper, and draw my table. And there we have it. The vase is in place. At this point, what I'd love for you to do is either take one of your oil pastel colors or a crayon, whichever you like. You can see that in Vincent van Gogh's sunflowers, he used kind of a brownish, reddish brown. So any form of brown, or if you'd like to do different colors for your vases, like you could do perhaps blue, use whatever color that you are thinking you might want to use as your outlining color. Personally, I'm going to go with the classic reddish brown in this case. So now what I'm going to do is take my reddish brown crayon or oil pastel, and I'm going to outline anything that I have drawn. So I'll outline my table, take care of my curved lines for my vase, and there we have it. Now you may also have noticed that Vincent van Gogh did something very interesting in this painting. He signed his first name inside of the vase. Now if you would like to take care of that and do that like Vincent van Gogh, please do. This would be the time to do that. You could sign your name right here. Or a more traditional place to sign our names when it comes to working with artwork is in the bottom right-hand corner of your painting. So since Vincent's is there already, I'm going to do the second option and take my oil pastel and sign my name in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, a lot of times kids will ask me, Mrs. Konrad, do I have to sign my name in cursive? No. Sign your name the way that you always sign your name, so that this is absolutely positively your own personal work of art. Fantastic. So here we go. Now we're going to start working on some flowers. So for our flowers, it would be great if we had a still life to look at. Of course, these sunflowers are wonderful. However, we would like to have an opportunity to do something a little bit more independent. So what I've brought with me here is just a whole variety of flowers to help inspire our work. So I'm going to set that there, and we're going to take a peek at that as some inspiration. And I have 5 different types of flowers for you today that we're going to work through. Now at this point, I wouldn't recommend worrying about a pencil anymore. We're going to go either straight crayon or straight oil pastel so that we can paint over the top of what we have created. So here we go. The first one that we're going to make is what I call the tulip. Now the tulips, when we take a look at those, we're going to use some curved lines for this. So I'm just searching for a color to use here so that you can see what I'm up to when it comes to my tulips. I'm going to start with red. Now for the tulip, when I create these, I like to think of the letter U with a line down the middle. That's how we're going to start. Now when it comes to painting, we'll fill that in a little bit more and it'll have more of a tulip effect. So here's our challenge of the moment. We're going to pick 5 different places on top of our vase to create some tulips. Now what I want to do is I want to spread them out so that they're not all piled up together and different heights and locations. So perhaps I might start over here. Here's a letter U with a line down the middle. That's tulip number 1. Perhaps I'll go way up here. Letter U with a line down the middle. Now you'll notice my flowers are going to be fairly large as this is a very big vase. And when we look at Vincent van Gogh's, he filled up this whole space on top with all of those beautiful flowers that he created in sunflowers. So there's number 2. Let's see, perhaps for number 3, I'll go over here. And I like to use this one as I call this one the wilty, the one that has the wilty stem. So I'm going to take one and turn it upside down with a line down the middle so it looks like it's going that way. Okay, so that's 4. I need 1 more. So let's find a nice spot for 1 more tulip. Perhaps I'll go right in here. Letter U with a line down the middle. Fantastic. Very, very nice. Now, this would be about the time where, since we have some flowers in place, I think it's time for us to start doing some painting. So grab your paints. And what we'll start with is, let's start with our vase and our table, and then we're going to go to those flowers that we just drew. So for my vase and my table, I'm going to use a fairly large paintbrush because the bigger the brush, the faster things will go. So if I would use something like this of course is going to take me longer than this will. So if you have a bigger brush, I would recommend using your big one for this part. Now we'll start with the table. The table, I'm going to go with brown. So to get my brown ready to go, I'm going to activate my brown. I add some water to it. I keep talking, I'm thinking it in my head, letting all of that water soak in. When my paint is ready, I'm going to grab a whole bunch, slide and glide across my paint. Of course, when we use watercolor, we want to be a slider and a glider, not a smasher. Brushes don't like it when we smash our brushes into the paint. So we're going to slide across the paint. And what I'm going to do now is take my brown paint and fill in my table. So the less water I use, the darker my color will be. The more water I use, the lighter my color will be. Now, some things that we can consider also is if we want to make some things a little bit darker, we could always add some oil pastels or some crayons in place of this to give that darker effect towards the top. Or I can simply just continue painting and adding in brighter, darker color as I go. Now, depending on your paints, some paints have a higher density rate when it comes to a little bit of water that they may appear much darker. So again, as you are working, the less water that you use, the darker your colors will be. The more water you use, the lighter your colors will be. So there's my table. Then I'm going to take my brush and now I'm going to choose a color for my vase. The example that we saw before, this one has a red with kind of an orangish color vase at the bottom. Any colors that you like would certainly do. Like for example, I showed you that blue vase from before. Those look really great. Let's see, I have a green vase here. Green vases are really pretty. So really just pick your favorite color and go for it. I would recommend don't go with the same brown as your table. Pick something that's different than that. So for today's example, I think I'm gonna go, maybe I'm gonna try some purple today. So I have to, again, activate my purple by getting it wet. The longer I let that sit, the brighter my color will be because it'll absorb that water. So if you can be patient, the longer you let it soak, the brighter your color will be. So, okay, now Vincent van Gogh, when I look at sunflowers, I see that he painted one color. He used sort of an orange, a yellow orange on the top and more of a white tan on the bottom. You, of course, in this situation can use any colors you wish. I think I might go with a purple on the top, maybe a blue on the bottom. That might look kind of interesting. I don't think I've ever done that before. Notice as I'm painting my vase, I'm using my paintbrush in the same curved line that I drew. That gives me kind of a more of a three-dimensional effect because if I can see those brush strokes, those will help make it look like it's popping out more than just flattening it out. All right, so now I'm gonna wash out my brush, dry it off, and activate a new color. Like I said, I think I'm gonna try blue on the bottom. So I'm going to get my blue wet, wait a minute or two, let that water soak in. And here I am, I'm still sliding and gliding. Smashers, beware, be a slider, not a smasher. And here we go, we'll paint in the vase on the bottom with that same curved line that I was using on the top. And of course you can enhance that with some darker lines if your paint is working in that way for you, or just fill it in with one color. Either way will look great. Okay. Beautiful. So now I'm going to rinse off my brush, give it a little wipe dry. And before I start on my flowers, I'm going to have to consider what to do with the background. Again, if you have a bigger brush, this will go a little bit quicker for you. In this case, I'm going to follow Vincent van Gogh's lead and go with that light green background. You can use any color again that you wish. You could use a yellow background, red background. We would consider this the wall. Anything behind this group of flowers that we're going to be making, that would be the wall. Here's our table, here's our wall. So choose a color that is not the same colors as your vase, because if that's exactly the same, your vase will not stand out. It'll just get lost with your background. So that's why I'm thinking this green would be really a great idea, because it's completely different than what I've done so far. When it comes to your background color, I would also recommend using a lot of water. So it's a nice light color so that everything that you're doing in the foreground in your still life will stand out against that background. So I'm going to take my brush, activate my green, and as I begin painting, start at the top of your page and work your way down. Again, I am using a lot of water so that my paint spreads out quickly. I'm just adding a little bit of tone to my background so it's not just a plain piece of white paper any longer. And here I'm working side to side, making progress down my page. And filling in my background. Now when it comes to the vase, this will be a situation where when you get to the top of your vase, you'll need to stop there, complete what you have going up on top. And again, you can see that I'm doing this very quickly because the faster I work, my paints will work together rather than creating lines. If I stop and wait too long, watercolor dries very, very quickly. So I'll finish up this side of my vase, and then I'll start at the top here, working my way to the table. If you get some variations, if you have some light spots, dark spots in your wall, consider it a blessing. It'll just give your background a little more variety. Of course, we're going to be featuring a lot of flowers here. So what happens in the background will become just a setting for all of the beautiful things that you are about to create above that vase. Very nice. Okay. So hopefully spread out those puddles so that our paper is not too wet and saturated. And for the moment, I'm going to rinse off my brush, wipe it off, and set my watercolors aside. While this is drying a little bit, I think it would be a great time for us to add a second flower style while we wait for this to dry before we paint over the tulips that we had created. So our second flower style of the day is what I'm going to call the star flower, or X marks the spot, if you will. So for this, I'm going to pick a different color than I've already used for my tulips. My tulips are going to be red. So for my star flower, I think I might go with purple. Let's see if I can find a purple in my crayon box here. Just looking for something. This looks like it'll work great. Now for this particular type of flower, I call it the X marks the spot or the star flower for this reason. It starts out like this. X marks the spot, line down the middle, and then a line side to side. Voila. So just like our tulips, we're going to go with an odd number. We're going to go with 5 star flowers in our vase. So let's see, it looks like I would have a nice space here. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Probably could use one over here. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Let's go right here in the center. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Moving on up. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side, and I think I'm going to fill in one right here. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Again, trying to spread all of this out so that I've got a big burst of flowers on my scene here. Great. Now that my background is just a little bit tacky, I think I can get away with starting to paint my tulips. So going back to my paint set, now I'm going to go with perhaps just a regular size brush, maybe a medium brush if you have one. And going back to my tulips, I started with my tulips being red. So back to my red paint. What's going to be nice about this is I had my red paint wet from before. So if I add just a little bit of water this time, it'll be activated and ready to go. And I'm hoping because that paint sat in my watercolor for a while, that it'll be a real nice bright red. So slide and glide. And here's what we'll do with our paints over the tops of our tulips. We're going to make a nice letter U, perhaps a little bigger at the bottom, and then our line down the middle will just join the two. Fantastic. Here we go. So starting with my red paint, I'll slide and glide, and starting with this one here, and a line down the middle. Using my crayon or my oil pastel as the base of my painting. Now, if you happen to go outside the lines just like I did right there, please don't worry about that. In the end, it will not matter at all. So scoop with your line down the middle. And again, be free with your painting. Vincent van Gogh was all about just going for it. Right on his canvases, right on his artwork. So here's our scoop with our little line down the middle. You can join those if you like. And there you go. Your tulips are set. Rinsing my brush and wiping it off. Now I'm going to take care of those star flowers. My star flowers, the base of those were in purple. So I'll go back to my purple paint, slide and glide. And now, just like I drew them, I'm going to paint them. So we'll start with an X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Grab a little more paint, X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. X, looks like I need a little water, X marks the spot, and the line up and down and side to side, X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side, and X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Now, as you can see, my paint is starting to run. I'm hoping you will not have the same issue because you, I imagine, are hopefully working on a flat surface rather than a easel like I am currently. However, I do know that this is, in the end, it really won't make that much of a difference even with those little runs in there, because I'm going to be adding all kinds of greens and fun stuff and more flowers. So even though at this very moment my heart is pattering a little fast because it's all running, I think it's going to be okay. Moving on. Now here is one that we're going to use straight paint. We're going to go with the X marks the spot in the middle, but with a border inside, and it's going to be a wet on wet technique. It looks like this. Now I used my purple for my X marks the spot, or star flowers if you will. So for this particular case, I want to pick two different colors. Perhaps I could use yellow and purple together, or orange and purple together. Two that are very, very different. It's going to stay with the same X that I had done before, but now I'm going to start with a base color. Perhaps I'm going to start with orange. I'm hoping that will show up nicely so you can see what I am doing. Now you will notice, now that I'm an expert in these star flowers, I'm not going to use crayons anymore. I'm just going to go straight for the work. And here's how it works. For this particular one, you're going to start with a circle, like so. Now inside of that circle, I'm going to switch to a little smaller brush. If you want to use the same brush size, that's fine. But while that circle is wet, here we go. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. And this is where the magic of watercolor starts to come into play, because you will see that the minute that those two colors hit together, they're going to spread out. Watercolor very much has a mind of its own. It will just do what it wants to do. So put the colors in place and then let the magic happen. And we just have to be happy with the way that it goes. So I can see here that I did not show you this example before I went for it with the X marks the spot with the painting. Great, so here we go. I'm gonna start with my circles. Oh boy. Picking 5 spots for circles, and I'm going to do it quite quickly because I want my paint still to be wet when I add that star flower to it. So let's start, maybe I'll start with one right here. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go over that little run there that was starting to happen. 3. Oh, let's put one in here too. 4. And no, I think I'm gonna go way up here. 5. Great, quickly wash my brush. Now I'm going to go to that second color. Here comes my purple. Inside of each circle, try to start with the one that you started with if you can remember which one it was. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. Going on to number 2, X, line, line side to side. X marks the spot, line down the middle, line side to side. X marks the spot. There it is. And one more remains. X marks the spot, line down the middle, and side to side. Looking great. Now, as I'm starting to get things filled in on the top, it seems to me I might run out of room. Well, if you take a look at our still life here of our flowers, you will see that the flowers do overlap. So as we start to go on, now I'm going to pretend these don't exist, and I'm going to put my next flowers just wherever it feels good at the top of this still life painting that I'm doing without worrying about things crashing into each other. They can certainly overlap, as you can see right here. Our next style of flower is the Daisies inspired flower with the circular center and then the little petals going around the middle. So if I was going to create a daisy, again, let's pick two colors that maybe we have not used much yet. So I think I'll start with perhaps a yellow center. So I'll activate my yellow. I know I want to use that. And I'm thinking blue petals. Hopefully I won't get a green result in my flowers. But the way that these will work is you will start with a small little circle in the middle. Circle in the center. And then little petals as you go around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you need to make it around the flower itself. So as you can see with me working on the easel, mine might run just a little bit, but that's okay. So let's see what we can do here with our yellow. Now if you're like me, we have two options. This yellow that I'm using is not a very, very bright yellow. And if I apply it to my painting, say, oh, it doesn't look too bad now. There it is. I would have one of two choices. I could keep my yellow paints, or I could go to a yellow oil pastel or a yellow crayon and create my centers using that. In this case, I think so that we can see it better, I'm going to go with that method. So 1, 2, here's number 3, 4 I'm going to put over here, and 5 I will put over here. Okay, fantastic. Now moving on to my paints, I'm going to get some nice bright blue. One advantage of using the oil pastel in the center is that now I know my blue petals will not blend with my yellow and create green. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Moving on around this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like I'm just drawing little circles and filling them in. Oop, there they go. That was the one I used the paint for, so it's going to blend together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Moving up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'd say 5 or 6. Depends how big you're making your petals, if you can make it all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, so there's the daisy. I think I might just bump up this one a little bit, fill that in. Very nice. Okay, and now last but not least, this one is maybe my favorite one. This is the dry brush flower. It is the one that looks like this. You see how it's all dry and airy? Kind of looks like those airier kind of flowers that you can go like, and then the dandelion blows into the air. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, if you have a round brush, like your traditional watercolor brush, what you'll want to do is to dry it off. And, sorry, I'm going to backtrack. What you will want to do is to decide what 2 colors you would like to use for this dry brush experience. So for myself, I think I'll go with some more blue. So I will make sure my blue is activated, wet, and ready to go. Rinse off my brush. And let's see, let's try blue and red. So I'll activate my red, make sure that that is waiting and ready to go. Dry off my brush. What we're going to do now is we're going to give our brush what I call rock star hair. So you take your brush, and now of course with lots of self-control, you are actually going to take your brush and smash its bristles so that it has what I call rock star hair. Now of course we do this with lots of control because we don't want to be mean to our brush, we just want to spread out the bristles like this. When those bristles have their rock star hair going, you take the bristles and you just dip the tips into the paint, like just the top of it, really quick. And taking that dry rockstar brush, now you apply and you just dot in a big puffy circle. So here we go. We'll do all 5 of the first color first. So just the tips of my brush. And now find some spots for this kind of a flower. I'm thinking right here might be good because of that messiness that I had there with the orange flower. So I'll take my dry brush, and it's just like I'm making little light dots and dancing on the paper. Let's put one maybe, I don't know. Looks like over here would be good because I kind of have a mess over there. So I'm just dotting. Again, it's called dry brush because the brush needs to be very, very dry and just the tips are dipped into the paint. That's 2. Let's go over here. It looks like I need something in that area. 3. Maybe in here. Again, now I'm going to overlap a little bit. Oh, that helped with that drip. That was great. As if those other flowers don't exist. And get a little more dry brush. I think I need something up here. So I'll dot, again, pretending those other flowers are not in my way. I'm just going to paint this flower as if nothing else exists. Fantastic. Now I need to wash out my brush and start the process all over again. I'll rinse my brush, dry it off, as dry as I can. Now it's time for some rock star hair. So take your finger, your index finger, push those bristles down, spread them out, rock star hair. And I think my plan was to use red, so now I'll use the tips of my brush, just very carefully dipping those tips of the paintbrush into the color. And here's my example. Now I'll add a little bit of that color over the top of the color before. So let's give these a little attention here. Adding some second color to our first color. And completing our dry brush flowers. Now, of course, if you really like how that looks, you could also use this as, very often they have sprays of like those little white filler flowers. You could take some of this and just add a little extra, if you like, as if it's some of that filler that many, many flower bouquets have. We can have some fun with that. That now even looks like it could be a different kind of flower in the background. Great. Rinse off our brush and dry it off. It is time for some stems. Now our stems, if we take a look at sunflowers, you'll see you can't see all of the stems because there are flowers that are blocking them. So we're going to approach this we'll have some stems fully visible and some we're going to hide behind other flowers. To begin, choose either an oil pastel or a crayon for the stems of your flowers. So it looks like I have a light green here. I think I'd like a darker green for my stems. So I'm going to go with this crayon. Now, take a look at your flowers and pick out 5 flowers that could have a stem that goes all the way to the vase. For example, here's my droopy. So I'll take my droopy, and now without stopping, I'm going to go all the way into the top of the vase. This is kind of an odd green, but that's okay. Might work out nice for me. It's a bluish green. So here is 1. Now I said we have to do 5, so we have 4 more. Let's pick some obvious ones that we could maybe see the whole thing. Here's 2. I'm just gonna go with a shorty right there. 2. And try to find something from the top that you could see a lot of the stem. I think I'm gonna go for this one here. And again, now I'm just gonna pretend that these other flowers don't exist. Like this one's in the front. 3. Oh, maybe this one here. 4. Now you'll notice my lines of my flowers are going in different directions for the stems. 4, and I think I'll take this one and have that one go straight in. Very nice. And 5. Great. Now, this isn't the greatest color green that I was hoping it was going to be, so I'm going to switch to a different green color. I'm going to try to this one this time. This one's going to be what we call the start and stopper. It starts, but it stops when it hits another flower, and then it goes on and gets to the vase. So we're going to do 5 start and stoppers. Here we go. Let's see. I'm going to start with something towards the top. It's going to look like this. I'm going to start, and I'm going to stop when I get to that one. Starts and stops. Now I pass over that one, and then I go into the vase on the other side. It starts, it stops, and then it continues on. Let's see. Let's try this one right here. It's going to start and stop, and stop till it gets to the vase. That was start and stopper number 2. Start and stopper number 3. Let's go for this guy right up here. Start and stop. Oh, start and stop. Oh boy. Start and stop. And start and stop to get to the vase. Skipping over flowers so it looks like it passes behind. That was 3. Now we need to go for 4. How about this guy right here? 1, start and stop, and start and stop. 3, I like this. This one looks like it needs a stem. Start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. Fantastic. That was 4. And here comes number 5. This one up here looks like it just needs a little something to hang on to here. 1, 2, 3, starting and stopping, and start and stop to the vase. Start and stop, start and stop, start and stop. Wow. Now, in this particular case, of course, we do have some floating flowers, and that's okay. It's meant to be a very abstract, expressionist painting, so it doesn't have to totally make sense. When you look at this, you think, okay, vase of flowers. So if there are some up there that are bothering you at this point, and maybe you have one that's really, really far away and you're thinking, oh, that does not look right at all, Mrs. Konrad. Well, then of course, do what you need to do. But every flower does not have to have a stem for this to look appropriate for what we have for a vase of flowers. Now, please don't despair because we'll add some leaves yet too. Okay, so we are doing great. We've got our stems in place. We've done 5 that were connected, 5 start and stoppers, and then of course if there's any that you feel very, very particular about, that it just looks like it's floating too far out, add those as you wish. So last but not least, we are going to add in some of the greens and the leaves. So basically all we need to do with this is get our paints ready to go, and we're going to have a little fun with some lines in green. So grab a paintbrush. You can use a large one. If you switch sizes of your paintbrushes, it'll give you different sizes for the greens that are in your vase. And what we're going to look to do is just now complement some of our stems with some of the greens. So again, pretending that some of these things are not there, I'm going to start at the base of my vase, and we're going to add in some greenery. So pulling from the vase and up. Now I have a fairly wide brush, so at this point what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to fill this top of the vase so it looks like all the flowers are connected to the top of it. And we just pull a few lines from the vase up, and wherever they land, they land. If they go off the page, great. Might want to take a little challenge to create some balance. When we think about if it goes off the page on that side, I might want something to go off the page on this side. Perhaps I'll start a little higher now and add in some greens where it looks like I have some major gaps. Like so. And maybe I'll throw a little greenery in here. And it looks like I might need a little something here and here to show that spray of greens. Now again, like I recommended, if you switch sizes of your brush, or maybe I'll just do a few real thin little lines through here yet to give. Now you do have to commit when it comes to these. It's just like start somewhere and pull those little lines. It's a very light touch that I'm adding in. These greens. And of course, you could certainly, if the paint makes you uncomfortable, you could take and go back to your crayons or your oil pastels and add in some things with that as well, just to give it a little variation in the way that it looks. If you have something that feels like it maybe needs like something that looks more of a petal inspired type of situation. But certainly feel free to keep this very, very abstract to give people the impression that this is a bouquet of flowers. And again, whatever you do on one side, try to balance it out so that your bouquet looks like it's a full, fresh bouquet. And last but not least, if you have the advantage of having oil pastels or white crayons, you'll see that Vincent van Gogh gave his vase just a little bit of shine. If you want to take it to that level, you could take a white oil pastel. Almost it's like it starts wide at the top and gets thinner towards the bottom. You could add in some shine spots on your vase, here, there, and anywhere. You could also do that to your table if you have some blips like I do of watercolor. And we could finalize. You could take this as far as you want. You could keep adding more and more lines to your design, or you can leave it as is. So at this point, I have given you all the tools I can for you to keep creating this fabulous still life, thanks to Vincent van Gogh and his sunflowers inspiration. I'm thinking if you make one of these, I know a lot of mothers, grandmothers, aunties out there might think this is kind of a fabulous thing for Mother's Day. Just saying. So good luck. I hope your paintings turn out great. Please let me see them. Submit them to my Facebook page, Mrs. Konrad's Art Class. And I cannot wait to see what you can do with your still lifes. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining me today.